go. Off you go. Two main profiles that really catch monstrous fish like this 35-pound striper and big largemouth. That is the gizzard shad profile and the trout profile down here where I live. I have the gizzard shad profile locked to a T, but the trout profile, not so much. I actually tried making it back when I started bait making. It was an abysmal failure. I'm ready to try again because it's one thing I really need, so I tried. I spare you a lot of the build details here because for a big part of it, it kind of looked like I was making a large adult toy. And so I just skip through that. This is kind of some pictures of how I formed it all. Yeah, it's not looking great, but just wait for it. Okay, better. And then voila. This was the biggest Sculpey mold that I have ever had to do. It was fairly difficult. I had to reduce sections of it. It was a pain, but I got it done. I almost resorted to carving wood, but why carve when you can sculpt? That's my mentality. This is a first successful, actual, decent looking trout mold that I've ever made. But I don't know how it's going to swim. It's pretty massive. It's heavy in my hand, and that's just clay. But I did make a long-standing decision that any baits that I push forward, I'm going to mold as one single body that I will cut into 4 or 5 different baits, like this gizzard shad. And that actually worked really well. Sure, it's a lot more mold material and it's a lot more expensive, but the point is that time that you waste from cutting and hoping that that will work correctly the way you cut it, you won't be able to make any deviations to the body and shift it unless you just make a full body mold, and then you make other residual molds based on the parent mold. So that's what we're going to do with this trout, since it worked with the gizzard shad. I'm using an amazing mold maker for this silicone mold this time because serious failures with the high strength 3, having to degas a lot of it, residual air bubbles. They say this stuff doesn't need degassing and it cures in 30 minutes. I would like to see. I'm just testing it preliminary right here to see if I like it, as if it does what it says it does. And after I found out that it really actually does what it says it's going to do, we went ahead and casted the whole thing. It's a serious amount of actual mold material. I did not expect for it to be that much just to cast one single body, but it was like a lot. If you check the bottom too, the bottom looks all nice and pink. So I don't see the problem there. We're gonna go ahead and mix it for another 30 seconds just to make sure it's nice and good. We're gonna go ahead and dump it. After we made sure there's no white streaks and everything is kind of pinkish red, we go ahead and we slow pour just down. We want to just minimize air bubbles. Again, it did all right when I just glazed it over, but that was a super thin layer. But when we actually go to pour in here, most mold material is degassed because then there's just air bubbles in it. You'll have to fix every replica when that happens. It gets seriously monotonous. And I just wonder how they got away with never having to degas this. So just very, very slowly cure. You pour it from the deepest side and you make it taper out to the shallow side. So you pour it right in the middle of the bait and then let it kind of taper out. And that's how you would just let air naturally escape. So you wouldn't get any air bubbles trapped underneath the lure itself. And if you pour too fast, that will happen. If you don't give time for air bubbles to come out, it'll happen. And this actually took an obscene amount of mold material. I molded an entire 64 rounds kit to cover that, and I still actually needed more. So 80 ounces total just to mold this thing. But we got it done. So the strategy is to make this thing a single piece, like topwater spook, then obviously a glide bait, a 3-joint crank down, and then a 4 or 5-joint wake bait. Hopefully all 4 go really well, but I would imagine at least 2 or 3 out of the 4 ideas will stick. Hopefully, because this is a big bait. It took 16 ounces of accumulated volume between microballoons and resin to cast that thing. Now there were some visible defects from the mold, and the process in which I layered it with Sculpey clay to make that was not perfect. So there are some of those that are residual in there that'll always be there, but they kind of add a unique thing to it. So I'm fine with it. I don't think it'll affect performance at all. At this point in time, we are going to go ahead and make the first topwater replica. So there's 3 holes. I'm using a 1/16 inch drill bit to make the pilot hole, and then we're screwing in screw eyes. You can get the screw eyes bulk off eBay or lurepartsonline.com. We're using the smaller ones. No big fish will not rip the screw eyes right out of the lure. That is a myth. It will never happen. It has never happened unless you drill the pilot hole too big, and then maybe it'll happen. It looks like it has a perfect spook body in terms of how it will lay out. So provided that we weight it right, it's only a single piece body with 3 hooks. It's cake to make. I can make those pretty quickly as long as I had enough material, and believe me, it's a lot of material. The 5-joint wake bait was pretty seriously hard to make, so I hope this thing works or I'll be devastated. And the 3-joint crank down is whatever it is. The glide bait, I didn't get footage of it, but we do have extensive footage of trying to test one and seeing how that went. So let's go see how that goes. I have the biggest rod that I have for the moment, which actually loads up when I'm using this thing. And, well, I don't know. It looks pretty sweet after we cleaned it all up and kind of sanded and polished up out of the mold. So it's pretty heavy. It's like 11 ounces. It's over twice as heavy as the biggest bait that I have at 13 inches or 12 and a half inches, whatever it is with the tail accumulated. So I don't know how that's actually going to swim. I would assume the weight of the entire lure is dramatically going to affect how you can work the bait. But at least it looks awesome. I mean, look at it. Let's go throw it, see what it does. So it's either going to swim okay or it's going to swim like dog crap. Like, one of the two is going to happen. There is a high chance that it could just swim like dog crap. Based on the way that it, in the water, where it kind of wanted to go nose heavy first when it fell. And generally when they do that, it's not great. I'm thinking it might roll. What's funny though is we almost got it right at the weight. We didn't have to add too much exterior weight to it. I think we're almost there, right? Where it floats really well. Like, it's super slow sink right now. But it's also 10 ounces, probably 11. It's probably a true 11 ounces right now with the hooks and the tail. And then when we paint in resin, it'll be over 11. So let's see what it does when it hits. Jeez, it's so heavy. It's so heavy. All right. Kind of just, all right. Look what it does to my rod tip. So if it does swim, it will be very unique. Can only get it swimming one way. It's so heavy. There we go. Twitch. Okay. You didn't bring my pliers with me like a moron. Alright, so it barely turned, means I have the pin too tight. Let's pull these out a full rotation. Thicker hardware, thicker pin, thicker everything. Okay, that is a little bit better. That actually maybe how it should have been the whole time. London Bridge. Such a ridiculous bait. Yeah, it's starting to glide now. Come on, dive. Yeah, it's nose heavy and rolls. We'll have to retry this a little later. Yeah, see, there we go. So I think it's the right amount of weight plus a ½ ounce. So what we'll do when we get back is we will put 1/4 ounce egg sinkers on the hook until it sinks. Figure out the exact ratio that it needs, put the front weight back. The front weight should not fall on that front, but this will be a really good crank down. That is what's good. It being a little nose heavy, just like that, is perfect for the crank down. There's a day I took away from building boats to build this lure. Even though it swims, like, actually, if you super slow creep it, it actually swims. It's hilarious. But we can definitely weight it to where it's not so finicky and it'll glide better. Not bad. We know what we have to do. You know, I was actually really mad they made these docks because it cut off. This is where we used to go like shore bang it along these rails. But now it's not so bad. You actually get out there farther. So the glide bait didn't go so well, and even if I could get it tuned well, it's so heavy that I think, honestly, a more simplified version of a trout bait would be much better for a glide. But in this mold, perhaps a crank down would be really good, and perhaps even some of the other deviations, because the profile is really good, even though it takes a lot of mass to fill up. We're not going to be able to get this thing under 8 ounces because it's so big. So we can hope for 9 to 10. Right now, we just cut that glide and turn it into a 3-joint crank down, added a bill to it. I'm not terribly impressed with how much effort it takes. You have to kind of burn it One thing about this thing is it kind of just planes with the water like a torpedo. It'll go straight and it'll glide. So that gives me hope for some other designs. Not so much for this design. So either I have to lighten the body, move the weights back, and it's more of a floater that dives. And I think that's the best we can actually hope for a usable throwing bait if we're going to run it as a 3-joint crank down, because the profile is still really good. But let's try it right now as a giant spook, where it was just one body, 2 weights, and 3 hooks. And this time we have a rod that will actually throw this without loading up. This is a Dobbins 908. The toughest rod, I think it's 10 to 16 ounces. It's like capacity. So this is what we're going to be using to throw this lure right now. So it's actually working really well. For not knowing crap about how to make a topwater, and for my last few topwaters being pretty bad failures, I would say, this one's actually pretty good. I like it, and it's pretty turbulent water, so imagine what it's going to look like on glass. We'll see. I think it'll get some fish's attention. If we get it in front of the right fish at the right place, it'll do all right. Here, just reel it in straight so I can kind of get it on camera.
Wow.
Oh my gosh, I just want one right now.
Look at that thing just slow swimming like a wounded. Like you've seen them how when they're dying and they're on top of the water.
Yep.
And they're just barely swimming along.
No, I think the thing will get murked, especially in the
Oh,
oil.
I know it will.
Yeah.
And it'll be a big boy.
I think the thing is supposed to go. I made it for Willow or for Laughlin. I just need to have a reason to go down there again. I have a friend down there who can fish that place to the max. I actually was gonna start making this bait for him, but this is the prototype, so maybe I'll take it apart and put it into production. I don't know. Maybe just cut up another one. All right, guys. So not bad considering the other tries we did for a trout were really not great. I don't know what it is about the design of the trout. It's easier to do a shad because a shad is like a fatter body and like skinnier, and this one's like cylindrical and slim, and so it's harder to weight a bait that way, truth be told. Like I found that the trout is harder to do. A really good trout bait's hard to do. You can find them out there. They're expensive for a reason. I know I layered this video like I did it all in like 1 week, but truth be told, I did this casting a year ago. It got burnt out on it actually. The failures from the glide bait in the 3-joint, and then some other things happening with the season ramping up. I just gave up on it because then the gizzard shad and everything were kind of tuned in over here, so I kind of just went full at that gizzard shad mold. So I think it's a fail as a glide. Even if we got the glide tuned right, it would be so heavy it's just obscene. A 10-ounce glide, and I think the bait is going to be, I guess, like 13. It'll be around 13 with a tail. It's just too heavy. I don't like it. I don't even know. I would like to get to 8 ounces, but I mean, really, at 8 ounces in a 16-ounce volume mass body, you can't really get it any lighter. I mean, maybe if you use that foam, I don't really know what to do with the foam, but kind of against using foam for baits. I think that it is a fantastic wake bait, and it has the potential to be a fantastic spook, like kind of like the Lunker Punker. The Lunker Punker is a legendary, massive topwater, and it's just everybody wants them. They don't make them anymore, or maybe they started making them again. I don't know, but they were like sought after forever. Like people try to remold them, but they're hollow bodies. They're injection molded hollow bodies. So I don't know how they're doing it with a ratio of a solid mass body like this. But I just would rather just assume make my own style that kind of does what the Punker did. This one actually did swim well for just weighting it on a whim and then noting what we could possibly do. If I can get this to 9 ounces and spook correctly, or maybe move a little better, I think it'll be a much better bait. If we get this one to a little bit lighter, like an ounce lighter, we can get it to move correctly, possibly put some rattles in the head, and because we want to sit like this, it's a little bit easier possibly to weight this just because the body naturally does what it's supposed to do, and it kind of torpedoes through the water. That's one good thing, is it goes like a torpedo. It just moves. It doesn't really want to glide, but it moves. Yeah, at least we got 2. Possibly 3 if I wanted to make a large crank down, but what I think I might do is I might mold one of these again, work at it to get it thinner, maybe shorter, and kind of carve at it like you would carve at wood, and then get it to be a thinner profile. We can shave this down by a few ounces in the profile, but it still be a fairly nice body. That, or we might just scrap this and make a whole new different trout. We might just do that. I don't know. There's ways, but we're definitely going to be molding a few of these. It's going to require a lot of mold material. Like get a few. You're going to have to buy like $400 or $500 in like kits to make a few of these. So it's worth it though. This one's fire. A lot of work though. But hay's off. We see potential. When you see potential in the lure, push it forward until you get it going. All right, guys. Thanks. See ya.